You know that feeling when you finish something and instead of feeling satisfied, you immediately think, I could have done better? Or when you spend hours on a detail that probably no one will ever notice? Or when you'd rather not do something at all because you already know you won't be able to do it the way you want? That's perfectionism. And the interesting thing is, it has nothing to do with doing things well. It has to do with never feeling good enough. Today we're talking about this mechanism, how it works, why we do it, and most importantly, what we can do to change it. Because yes, it can be changed. What perfectionism really is. Let's start with something important. Perfectionism doesn't mean having high standards. Having high standards is healthy. It means you care. You want to do things well. You have clear goals. Perfectionism is different. It's when your standards are so high, they become impossible to reach. It's when your value as a person depends on reaching these standards. It's when a small mistake makes you feel like a complete failure. Let's look at a concrete example. Imagine you're preparing a presentation for work. If you have high standards, you work carefully, prepare the content well, check that everything is clear. When you present it and it goes well, you feel satisfied. If something doesn't go as planned, you think, okay, next time I'll do it differently. If you're a perfectionist, though, you spend days adjusting every single slide. You change the colors 10 times. You rewrite the sentences continuously. Even when the presentation goes really well, you focus on that moment when you hesitated or on that slide that according to you wasn't perfect. And if something goes wrong, you feel completely inadequate. The fundamental difference is this. Someone with high standards uses results to improve. The perfectionist uses results to judge themselves. Another example, you're cooking for friends. With high standards, you make an effort to prepare something good. You follow the recipe carefully. You want your guests to be happy. If a dish turns out so-so, you think, oh well, next time I'll try differently, and you still enjoy the evening. If you're a perfectionist, everything has to be impeccable. The table, the dishes, the timing. If something burns or doesn't turn out perfect, the evening is ruined for you. You can't enjoy the company because you're obsessed with that detail that didn't go the way you wanted. And probably your friends didn't even notice it, but you can't let it go. Perfectionism is also very much linked to control. When we're perfectionists, we try to control every detail because we think that's the only way we can avoid mistakes, criticism, failures. But the reality is, we can't control everything. And the more we try to do it, the more anxious and inadequate we feel. We think we're protecting ourselves from imperfection, but we're actually creating a prison for ourselves. A prison made of rigid rules, unrealistic expectations, and constant fear of not being good enough. How to recognize perfectionism. Let's now look at some signs that indicate you might be a perfectionist. This isn't about making a diagnosis, but about recognizing patterns in your behavior. All or nothing thinking. For the perfectionist, there are only two options: perfect or total failure. There's no middle ground. If you get 9 out of 10, you think about the mistake that made you lose that point, not the 9 you got right. If a project is 95% successful, you focus on that 5% that didn't work. This type of thinking prevents you from seeing your real progress. Every time you reach a goal, you immediately raise the bar instead of recognizing what you've done. Let's look at a practical example. You've just finished writing an important report. You've reread it 3 times, checked everything, fixed every detail. You submit it, and your boss says, "Great work, very thorough." There's just this one small thing to adjust in the final paragraph. Most people would think, "Good, overall it went well. I'll fix that thing, and it's fine." The perfectionist instead focuses only on that one thing to fix, forgets all the rest of the work that was excellent, thinks, "See, I messed up again." I'm not capable. This pattern repeats itself in every area of life. In fitness, I did 4 workouts this week instead of 5. I failed. In relationships, I had a tense moment with my partner. The relationship isn't working. At work, I made a small mistake. I'm incompetent. The paradoxical procrastination. And here we connect back to my video on procrastination. Many perfectionistic people procrastinate, and it seems contradictory. How can someone who wants to do everything perfectly constantly put things off? The mechanism is this. If you know you don't have enough time to do something perfectly, you'd rather not start at all. Or you start, but then you get stuck on a detail and don't move forward. This way, if the result isn't good, you can always say, it's because I didn't have time, instead of facing the possibility that you're simply not perfect. Procrastination becomes a protection from the anxiety of not being good enough. A concrete example. You need to write an article. You know that to write it the way you'd like, you'd need weeks of research, a perfect structure, impeccable style. But you only have a week. So what do? You put it off. You find other things to do. You tell yourself, when I have more time, I'll do it right. But time passes, and you find yourself at the last minute doing something rushed, which obviously isn't how you wanted it. Or you start writing, but you get stuck on the first sentence. You rewrite it 20 times because you're not convinced by it. You spend 2 hours just on the introduction, and so you never get to the end. Constant self-criticism. The perfectionist's internal dialogue is harsh. It's that little voice in your head that comments on your every action. This isn't good. You could have done more. Others would have done better. You're always the same. No one would judge you as harshly as you judge yourself. Yet you keep doing it, convinced that this self-criticism helps you improve. Actually, it paralyzes you. Try to think about how you talk to yourself when you mess something up. You probably use words you'd never use with a friend. You're stupid. You're incapable. You'll never amount to anything. Harsh, absolute, destructive words. And this voice doesn't limit itself to obvious mistakes. It constantly comments on everything you do. You're cooking and you think, I'm doing everything wrong. You're talking to someone and you think, I'm saying stupid things. You're working and you think, I'm not fast enough. It's a constant background of judgment that erodes your self-esteem day after day. Difficulty delegating. If you're a perfectionist, you probably find it hard to ask for help or let others do something instead of you. Because you think, if I do it myself, I know it'll be done well. If someone else does it, who knows? This leads you to overload yourself with work and responsibilities, increasing stress and fatigue. And even when you do delegate, you tend to control every step, taking away autonomy from others. The result? You're exhausted. The other people feel undervalued and useless. And you're still not satisfied because there's always something that, according to you, could have been done better. Constant comparison with others. The perfectionist constantly compares themselves with others, but in a distorted way. They compare their behind the scenes with others' highlight reel. You see other people's results and think they're naturally good, while you have to work twice as hard to get half as much. This comparison doesn't motivate you. It devalues you. The perfectionist's comparison always goes downward. You look at others and feel inadequate, never enough. Fear of judgment. Under many of these behaviors, there's a deep fear, the fear of being judged negatively. The perfectionist thinks that if they're not perfect, they'll be criticized, rejected, considered inadequate. This fear influences every decision. Before saying something, you think about it 1,000 times because you're afraid of saying the wrong thing. Before sharing your work, you review it infinitely because you fear others' judgment. You avoid trying new things because you fear not being good. and others noticing. But the reality is that most people are too busy with their own lives to judge you as carefully as you think. And even when someone does criticize you, it's usually less devastating than what you fear. Where perfectionism comes from. Understanding where perfectionism comes from can help you be kinder to yourself. No one is born a perfectionist. It's something you learn. Many perfectionistic people grew up in environments where love and approval were linked to performance. Not in an explicit or cruel way. Simply when you did well at school, you received attention and affection. When you did poorly, you were ignored or criticized. As a child, you learn that your value depends on what you do, not on who you are. And you carry this belief with you, even as an adult. You think you have to earn love, respect, even the right to be happy. Maybe your parents were demanding, not cruel, but demanding. A 7 wasn't enough. You had to get an 8. An 8 wasn't enough. You could get a 9. A 9? Well, why not a 10? There was always a next level to reach. Or maybe you were praised only for successes. Good job, you got a 10. Good job, you won the competition. But when you didn't get excellent results, no one told you it was okay anyway, that you were still loved. Silence. And as a child, you interpret that silence as, I'm not enough. Parents don't need to do it on purpose. Often they're not aware of it. But the message that comes through is, you're valuable when you excel. You're not valuable when you're simply yourself. Perfectionism can also arise as a survival strategy. If you grow up in an unpredictable or unstable environment, you learn that controlling everything you can is the only way to feel safe. If you're perfect, you think, they can't criticize you. If you never make mistakes, they can't hurt you. If you have everything under control, nothing bad can happen. Of course, this doesn't work because perfection doesn't exist. But the mechanism remains active. Maybe growing up there were arguments at home, tensions, difficult moments. And you learned that if you were good, if you didn't cause problems, if you did everything right, maybe things would go better. You became the perfect child, the one who doesn't complain, who does well at school, who doesn't create problems. And this strategy continues, even as an adult. You think that if you control everything, if you do everything perfectly, you'll be safe. But life doesn't work like that. You can't control everything, and trying to do so exhausts you. Under perfectionism, there's often a deep fear, the fear of not being enough, of being rejected, of being discovered as inadequate. The perfectionist thinks, if I show my imperfections, others will reject me. If I make a mistake, they'll discover that I'm actually worth nothing. So they try to build a perfect facade, hoping no one sees what's underneath. But this creates a disconnect between who you really are and who you show yourself to be. And this disconnect, as we saw in the videos on self-acceptance and loving yourself, prevents authentic relationships and true self-esteem. Because if people appreciate you only for your perfect facade, deep down, you feel they're not really appreciating you. And so even when you receive compliments or recognition, they don't really satisfy you. You think if they knew what I'm really like, they wouldn't respect me so much. It's a vicious circle. You try to be perfect to be accepted, but this very search for perfection prevents you from feeling truly accepted. The consequences of perfectionism. Perfectionism has real costs. The constant pressure to be perfect keeps you in a state of chronic anxiety and stress. There's always something that's not good enough, always another thing to fix. You can't truly relax because your mind never stops judging and controlling. Over time, this exhaustion builds up. You feel drained, empty, unable to enjoy things that used to bring you pleasure. This is burnout, and it's a direct result of trying to maintain impossible standards. Perfectionism also blocks your creativity and growth. To learn and improve, you need to experiment and make mistakes. But the perfectionist can't afford that risk, so you stay stuck doing only what you already know how to do well. Your relationships suffer too. You might be overly critical of others, or you might hide your real self behind a perfect facade, preventing genuine connection. People know only the polished version of you, not who you really are. And here's the biggest irony. Perfectionism actually makes you less productive. While you're stuck perfecting minor details or paralyzed by fear of imperfection, someone with healthy standards is completing projects, learning from feedback, and moving forward. Perfectionism doesn't make you better at what you do. It just makes you harder on yourself. How to change perfectionism? Changing perfectionism starts with awareness. Notice when that critical voice kicks in and question it. Ask yourself, is this objectively true, or is my perfectionism talking? What would I say to a friend in this situation? You'll often find you're much harsher on yourself than you'd ever be with someone else. Learn to distinguish what actually matters. Not everything requires the same level of effort. An important client presentation needs attention to detail. A routine email doesn't. Ask yourself, what's the real consequence if this isn't perfect? What's good enough for this specific situation? Practice. Done is better than perfect. Start small with low-risk tasks. Set time limits and stick to them. When the time's up, you're done. You'll discover that the world doesn't collapse. People don't judge you as harshly as you feared, and they often don't even notice the imperfections you are obsessing over. Shift your focus from results to progress. Where were you 6 months ago? What have you learned? Growth isn't about perfection. It's about improvement. Keep track of what you complete, not just what's perfect. Develop self-compassion. When you make a mistake, talk to yourself like you'd talk to a friend. Everyone makes mistakes. I can learn from this. Self-compassion isn't weakness. It's recognizing that being human means being imperfect. Reframe mistakes as information, not failure. Mistakes tell you what doesn't work, so you can adjust. People who achieve great things aren't those who never fail. They're those who fail, learn, and keep going. Share your work before it's perfect. Ask for feedback early. Delegate tasks. Working with others reminds you that everyone is imperfect, and that's completely normal. You'll also get useful input while you can still make changes. Finally, celebrate completion, not just perfection. Every time you finish something, even if it's not perfect, acknowledge it. You did it. That has value. Give yourself credit for progress, not just for flawless execution. Change takes time. You'll have days when you fall back into old patterns. That's part of the process. Every small step counts. Every time you deliver something imperfect. Every time you speak to yourself with kindness. Every time you accept a mistake without falling apart. You're building a healthier relationship with yourself. Conclusion. Perfectionism isn't a positive quality. It doesn't make you better. It just makes you harder on yourself. Freeing yourself from perfectionism doesn't mean stopping trying or settling. It means allowing yourself to be human. It means doing things well without your value as a person depending on the result. It means accepting that your imperfections are part of you, that you're unique exactly as you are, with your mistakes and your limits. And it means treating yourself with kindness and understanding instead of constant judgment. Change takes time, but every small step counts. Every time you deliver something imperfect, every time you talk to yourself with more kindness, every time you accept a mistake without emotional collapse, you're building a healthier relationship with yourself. Thank you for taking this time to reflect with me. I hope you carry something from this conversation into your day, into your life. Be gentle with yourself until we meet again.